Thanks everyone, and appreciate you being here. It's kind of cold, but we'll make sure we'll warm it up. Um, One of the things that I didn't share earlier, so I've been working with SharePoint since 1999, even before it was called SharePoint. It was a hodgepodge of different technology to what is SharePoint today. Prior to SharePoint, I actually started my career in assembler. See, I got some blank stares there. You weren't born yet. So it was, and then he was live, I'm sorry. I moved up the ranks and I managed IT groups, managed IT projects. So I ran IT project management offices and whatnot. And as you may imagine, especially large-scale projects, you need some kind of project management discipline, but more importantly, tools. So my foray into Microsoft Project was actually way before SharePoint. I've done a lot of work with Project. And my first experience with Project was I was still a assembler programmer. Okay? Anybody using Microsoft Project here? Good. Did you remember that very first time you clicked on that icon and Project came up? What was that memorable? To me, it was like my first bad date. Because I mean, I was a programmer, and my boss says, "Hey, you're going to work on this project. Here's Microsoft Project." Mid-90s. Project 95, 32, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I have electrical engineering degree. I know Office. I know Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Project, whatever. So I fired that thing up, and I was staring at it for 3 freaking hours. I didn't know what to do. So I had that negative impression of project management. But now I've gone to the dark side. Kidding aside, so what we're going to look at in this hour is I'm going to show you with the 2013 suite of technologies, Project, SharePoint, Project Server, Office, everything related, on how you can fast track your project management success. And obviously the word success varies from one organization to another. And I'm very passionate about this, since especially in the SharePoint world, as long as I've been involved in it, there's still a handful of resources and a handful of people really talking about how you drive business value from the SharePoint platform. When I started working on this concept using SharePoint for project management, so I did that for my customers in the early 2000s, a lot of them were like, oh, this is great. Because a lot of people don't like project, and a lot of people use email to manage projects, so they need something in between. And SharePoint was brilliant. But there weren't any guidance around it. Any SharePoint book you found back in the early 2000s was about building web parts, setting up servers and whatnot. The irony of this is SharePoint was supposed to be for the business. So long story short, I wrote the very first business focused SharePoint book called SharePoint for Project Management, and I'm working on 2013. And by the way, for being here, I'll give everyone a copy. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'll pass this around. Just put your card, write your name and email, and I'll send you a code where you can download a copy. And this session as well, all is being recorded, just like the keynote this morning. I'll provide you all the resources I show you for that information you give me. Okay, so with that being said, let's get our, and by the way, if you want to put money, feel free. I need some cash to go home. So let's talk about this. Before we jump into this idea of using Project Server, let's first dive into the problem, right? For our organization, my company is based out of Washington, D.C. We serve a lot of large organizations, be it government or commercial, from 2 key areas. Number one, we help organizations maximize the business value of SharePoint, so we help drive sustainable adoption. We'll talk about that this morning. There's actually programs we've done, and we've helped organizations to do that. But the second key area that we help a lot of organizations with is in the area of project management. How can I not only improve our project management practices, but more importantly, maximize our SharePoint investment to do that? Does this picture look familiar to you? Y'all see that? In your organization where maturity around project management varies, for example, anybody has PMO in their organization, project management officer? Those are your PMP people. No lie, PMP. They're very focused, they know what they're doing, process-oriented, checklists, templates, knowledge, whatever. Great. But then there's pockets of people in your organization who I call They're not even formal project managers. I call them reluctant project managers. Who are they? All of us. People in the business, marketing, sales, where they're working on something, they just need a tool. That's a problem. And then the other challenge we have is different tools. And again, this rings so true with project management. You know, a lot of people in your business, they rely on non-enterprise tools to get their work done, project collaboration. Let's say you're in marketing, you're doing some creative work with a vendor. Oh, they can't get into our SharePoint environment, they can't use their SharePoint site. They use email or what? They go to Box, Dropbox, anybody familiar with that? Well, IT keeps telling business, don't do that, we'll get you something. Business goes, we can't wait. Everything's happening so fast. You gotta have something to help. The other area is, what's everybody working on? I work with a lot of IT organizations. One of their pain point is, docs, here's the deal. I have a team of 40 developers. We serve the business. We build applications. But at any point in time, I can't tell you who's doing what. At any point in time, I don't know if we can take on more work. At any point in time, I don't know how we can prioritize this. So how do you do it? Every week we have these spreadsheet meetings that we figure out, what's Joe doing? What's Tony doing? And then for the next fiscal year, we know we need more people. When I ask for money, and the big boss says, screw it, I don't have anything to prove. Y'all with me? In that book? Resource management? Line of business integrations. And this is one of the things I love. Today, when you talk about project management, it's not just project management by itself. It ties into everything now. I mean, we're in what? An economic crunch here. In DC, the big word is accountability, transparency. Right? Money. How are you spending money? How many jobs have you created? It ties into a bunch of different systems and tools. And one thing that I hear a lot is, docs, we don't want another tool because our developers, they put in their time in some other time-sheeting tool. And you throw project server, SharePoint, you're telling me to have them put their time twice? Have you been in that situation? It works, right? No? I know. I feel the pain. You feel my love? Lack of support. IT so busy, no processes, and then this is huge, visibility. Management is asking, be it CIO, CFO, CMO, show me what's going on. I need my dashboard. By the way, that's a secret to career success, in case you don't know. When you see your boss tomorrow, one word, boss, dashboard, you get promoted. So, this should be familiar to you. And because of these challenges and problems, what do we rely on? What's the most used project management tool today? Excel's number 3. Email is number 1. This was a formal survey done by Project Management Institute 2-3 years ago to 300,000 certified project managers in the world. What's the number 1 tool you rely on to manage your project? Email. No. Where's that status report? Check my email. Where's that expense information? Let me check my email. Where's that update? Let me check my email. Shame on us. Not because we don't have any other better tools. We do, much better. It's just that we don't stop and think about it and understand our needs. You see, today, here's what's going on. When we talk about project management, I had a good conversation over lunch with Tom, a lot of us think project management as a tool problem, right? I have a lot of customers. They come to me, hey, docs, you wrote the book SharePoint for Project Management, help us use SharePoint for Project Management, or Project Server for Project Management. I go, why? What's going on? Oh, our projects are behind, not on schedule, scope's blowing up, so we think we need Project Server. Or we think we need Clarity. Anybody using Clarity? How about Primavera? How's that? So we think a tool will fix it. Does it? No. Here's the problem. Project management is a 3-legged stool where you have the tools, you got relevant processes, and people involved. A lot of us are in this bucket where I call level 1 maturity, where really there's none. You don't have a formal background. It's not like you went to school for project management. You just do it, and you use these tools, which is fine. But collectively, through time, it's not fun. And then as an organization, if we force everybody to jump into this holy grail tool, I mean, there might be some people who will take advantage of that, great, but not everybody. Maybe some people just need to go level 2. Well, guess what? Maybe some people just need to stay here. Y'all with me? I don't expect Miss Betty in accounting, who's taking care of project expenses, to take a PMP class. I don't expect her to use Project or Project Server because Excel is her killer app. Y'all follow me? So how do you make this work? I had somebody ask me today too, Docs, are you going to talk about when you should use Project Server? Of course. But here's the bigger point I want to make. Before we dive into that, I want you to think about this concept. Project management on your terms. Depending on who you are, the time of day, what you're working on, Microsoft can provide you a solution. Because when we talk about project management, it's not just Project or Project Server. Microsoft has a lot of project management tools, Outlook being the first tool. They just don't want to say it, but Outlook is their primary project management tool. Now, if you're thinking, well, Ducks, there's some people in my company, all their needs is really to have action item and task and have a couple people work on it. Well, maybe just use SharePoint. Out of the box SharePoint, project task list, or just task list. Well, Ducks, I need to do more collaboration, document sharing, artifact management. Yeah, SharePoint can do it. Ducks, I need better scheduling. While SharePoint has a task list, are you all familiar with the task list in SharePoint? Okay. I'll show you in a second, talk to you more about it. But it doesn't do complex scheduling. It doesn't do things like, well, these two tasks has to happen at the same time. If this happens and that happens, then we can have the next task happen. That's what we call dependencies. SharePoint can't do that. Well, no problem. We'll marry SharePoint with Microsoft Project Professional on the desktop, which we will see in a second. Well, Docs, we need more global or more enterprise stuff. We need more visibility across what's going on in my resources, my projects, our priorities, our drivers, our demand, right? A project server can do that. But here's the cool thing. If you have the platform in place, which we'll talk about, we don't have to force people to work here. If somebody's using Outlook, keep them in Outlook. If all they need is Excel, keep them in Excel. If all they need is SharePoint without project, fine, keep them there. We can make all of them work. So, here comes Project 2013. Let me give you a quick background. Project 2013 is a family of Microsoft project products. 2013 is the latest and greatest version. It's both available on-premise and online. Okay? And it's the first time that ever happened. If you're familiar with Office 365, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, they introduced a new offering. It's called Project Online. And that's essentially is Project Server 2013. Everything I'm going to talk about now applies to both on-premise and online. So 2013 is made up of 2 products. Project Professional, which is on the desktop. It's what users install like Office, Word, Excel. And then there's Project Server. That's the server-based tool that sits on top of SharePoint. Now, the beauty, the promise of this platform is you can make everyone happy. Where I kind of talked about this morning, the idea of SharePoint as a platform, keep in mind Project sits on top of SharePoint. And be it all you need is internal, external project collaboration or project portfolio management. Anybody dealing with ALM, Application Lifecycle Management, the IT front? Anybody using Agile? There's a cool, I'll talk more about it, there's a cool app that's coming out on SharePoint 2013, Project 2013. It's called the Task Board app. Essentially what it is, so you're familiar with Scrum, right? Where the Post-it notes and all that? So now, it's going to come out in a few weeks. You add it to your SharePoint project server environment. Literally, if you have a touch device, you can move Post-it notes and all that, and it connects to a list and projects. And very cool. Reporting, compliance, and even line of business integration. And like I showed this morning, not only can you produce these specific solutions around project management needs, it can interact with existing tools people are familiar with. Okay? So, how do we do this, Docs? How do we drive project management success? The first rule of thumb, if you want success, one size doesn't fit all. It's on your terms, on my terms. And you shouldn't be ashamed to ask for it. There's no other platform out there that could do this today. You know, we as IT, I keep saying we, I know there's folks from the business here, but as IT, one of the things we're so used to is we make something and we give it to the user. Like it or not, here you go. No, it's changing. It's all consumerized, right? Which is fine. So, deliver success, it has to be on their terms. And how do we do it in these three key areas of project management? So first, let's talk about when you start a project, when you start planning, okay? When you start planning or when you start working on a project, the idea is you should enable and empower your business to quickly get started, especially if it's more of a how would I call this, non-formal project. Because I know in your organizations you have formal projects where you spend buku amount of money, but then you have your regular day-to-day stuff, couple weeks, couple months, right? So the idea is you want to get people started quickly. But before you do that, this is where the people, process, technology comes in quite important. You gotta define and educate folks on what the game plan is. So let me bring up that swim lane diagram in a second here. Okay, so first and foremost, before you could do anything, right, you got to have your act together. So let me explain what I'm talking about here. When we work with customers to help them take advantage of your SharePoint-related technology for project management, the first thing I ask is, so what's your project management process? And then they always say, oh, we don't have time for that. Just install that darn thing. Process planning, that's just you. No, I mean, just indulge me. Help me understand how you do projects here. This is a great way to extract, to draw, and understand what the business needs are. Okay, Doc, so this is how it works here at our company. So when a sponsor formalizes, says we want to do on a project, they talk about it. Once it's approved, a project manager is assigned. Once the project manager is assigned, we select who that individual is. Then that project manager, first thing he or she would need to do is create a schedule. Once the schedule is created, assign a resource, put in all the templates, blah, 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 blah. And then, again, as the process moves on, we see who the other individuals are in this grand scheme of things. Now, why is this important? Here's why. Number one, a lot of folks, a lot of organizations, they don't do this. This is not hard. This is not easy nor hard work, but it's essential. I know you're going to use a very complex tool called paper and pen, sometimes Visio. But the idea is you want to get everybody on the same page on how we do it here. It might not just be one, it might be two or three, depending on the kind of projects or initiatives. Number two, this is important because this will define on how you tweak your technology. Just like SharePoint, Project Server can do 10,000 gazillion things. And you don't expect your user to figure everything out and make it work for themselves. You got to tweak the platform to behave in a way that would support this process. Y'all with me? Number three, here's the most important part. By understanding, defining the process, what else did we do here? We just surfaced responsibilities. So the project manager's responsibility is to do these things. The team member's responsibility is to do those things. Which now translate to we've just identified the kind of training people need. Relevant training. So for the project manager, he or she needs to learn how to do all this stuff. Might be a 3-hour training. Team member, update task, whatever, might be half an hour, 1 hour training. Okay? So you have to have a game plan in place before you do anything. So once you have your game plan in place, as you start planning, you want to get everyone on the same page. To get everyone on the same page, and think about your world. I mean, think about whenever you start a project. I mean, when you start a project, especially the non-formal ones, you start thinking about, let me fire up Microsoft Project and create a schedule. No, we don't think that. Right? We start firing email, hey, Joe, Tony, we're going to work on this, word those documents, word those templates. Y'all with me? So what I would recommend, as you get started, start with SharePoint as a project collaboration platform. So now what I could do is, so let me kind of take you through this. So this is, for example, my company intranet. And by the way, well, my examples here are on Office 365. I have Project Online, I have SharePoint, I have the whole thing. So this is our company intranet, right? So everything about my company is here. So one of the things I have here is a link called Project. So Gang, what we're seeing here is our project management office site. So straightforward, simple. But as a part of our process, again, this core process is important, and we're educated and taught how to do this. Whenever you're assigned a project docs, get started with a SharePoint site. So put all your collaborative information there. So I can hit create, and let me call this the ICC SharePoint project, okay? And let me just hit create. So as soon as I hit create, it's going to spawn off and use an out-of-the-box template, and it'll create your project site for me. Now, even better, I can also define the template that you're going to use. Go ahead and pre-populate with files and checklists and what have you. You always need to do. Especially if it's something we do over and over and over again. Now, from a getting on the same page concept, that's quick, that's easy, and we can maintain organizational standards and quickly engage with relevant stakeholders. So as soon as we do that, let me bring up my Windows environment here. So let's go ahead and go to that site. Okay, actually, let's go back here. Should be done by now. Let's see. ICCSP. Okay, all right. So we've got my ICC SharePoint site. So I look at this thing. I go, you know what? I don't need this. I need to pre-populate with all the templates that I need. So I'm going to go and look at all my templates for this project. Let me get those. Let me drag and drop. Voila. So I can get the project started. All that good stuff. I'm going to start inviting people. Okay, so let me invite my colleague Alex because he's going to be a part of this project. Okay. In fact, let me start following this project site because I don't know about you. I work with 10,000 different projects. I can't remember the addresses, and you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start following. In case you're not familiar with the idea of following, I mentioned this morning they made a lot of investment in 2013 with the social concept, following, likes, tags, and all that. Now that I'm following this, I can go to my news feed, which is kind of like the new My site. It'll roll up everything I'm following, I like. Everybody with me? So I can quickly get started. Another thing here is I got my tasks. I said get organized, edit the tasks. So I can start working on the task. Again, when you get started on a project, it might just be a simple task. Let's see. Is it thinking? There you go, still thinking. All right, so I can start, let's say, okay, for this initiative, so let's start talking to customers, interview customers. We're going to do it in, I'll just type the date, 4/3/2013. All right, and notice that as I'm typing, check that out. On the top part, that's a new feature. It's called the timeline view. It's very visual. It works both in Internet Explorer and non-IE browser. So let me add another thing here. So let's say look for vendors for 2013. In fact, let me assign this both to myself. I have an alias here. Let me log in. Okay, all right, good. So now after I do that, you know what? I want this thing to show up in the timeline as well. Add to timeline. There you go. So let's see what this thing looks like in my Mac. I just want to show you. So same thing, right? So you see the same task, same experience, and that's part of delivering on people's terms. I mean, this is the tool I use. And here's the cool part. It's using industry standard technology that your user can interact with these things. You know, they want to line it up nicely and all that good stuff. It's cool. This is part of 2013. You can get everyone on the same page quickly, just with a SharePoint site. Y'all follow me? Next, as a part of planning, you want to enable users to utilize familiar tools. So this morning I showed integration with Excel. I showed integration with Outlook. So let me show you a couple other things here. So speaking of Outlook, one of the video I showed this morning is I said, you know what? In 2013, there's a new feature called site mailboxes, right? Site mailboxes. So let me go to this is from this morning, my demo. This morning I was describing that, we're working on this project, executive presentation, but one of the things that comes with 2013 is a feature called site mailbox, okay? So with a site mailbox, here you go. So let me go to the site mailbox. I took it out of my quick launch. Essentially what it is, it's an email inbox for the entire website, or in this case, project site. The idea is, this is brand new, the idea is anybody that's a part of this project will have access to this mailbox. Because you can't stop people from emailing. They'll still email each other. And then the challenge is, even if you have a project site, people still talk separately on email. You're not truly consolidating project artifacts. So every SharePoint site now comes with a site mailbox, so you can interact with it from the browser, which is cool. So, it's still loading. But from an integration, familiar experience perspective, I can also interact with this from, so you see it's like Outlook Web Access, but you can also interact with it directly in Outlook. Now keep in mind this feature is, the Outlook integration is strict with 2013 only. So here's the cool thing now, so let me show you. Right? Let me show you. If you look at my Outlook, notice these things. There's this thing called Executive Presentation Project, where essentially, as soon as that site mailbox is created, it automatically shows up in my Outlook. I don't even have to do anything in Outlook. It just shows up, right? So now what happens is, anytime somebody emails that project site mailbox, it has its own email address. It's called Executive Presentation Project, right? So I'm going to hit reply. Well, guess what? Anybody in the team will get this email. In addition, the site will have this email as well. Does that make sense? Familiar experiences. You guys like this? I love this feature. Phenomenal. Now, some of you may not have Outlook, but if you have Exchange 2013 and SharePoint 2013, they can still interact with the site mailbox directly on the browser. They can still do that. Now, the other point around this, other than the email, the site mailbox, check this out, also surfaces all the project documents. So any document in your document library in your project site is transparent to Outlook as well, which means your users can open it here, edit it here, but more importantly, let's say your user decided to, I'm going to copy a file to my project site, and the way I'm going to do that is just drag and drop to Outlook. Let's see, so I'm going to upload this executive briefing. So notice it's there, it's uploading, and in a few seconds, if I go to the project site, I'll see that same file in the document library. So seamless experience, very familiar with your users. Questions? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying so it's residing in their inbox as well as the inbox for this?
Actually, it's not residing in their inbox. So check this out. This is my Outlook. That's my alias, Darth F. That's my personal inbox. So it's as if you're connected to a bunch of inboxes. Yeah? But just like what Outlook does, when you have a new email, it'll say how many emails unread and all that stuff. Right? So it still behaves that way. But it's not their personal inbox. It's a separate inbox just for the project alone. So think of this like a mailing list kind of thing, but specific to that project. You don't have to set up the mailing list. As long as people are a part of that project, it'll just show up. Did I answer your question?
So it doesn't show up actually in the inbox. It shows up as it's part of that project.
Correct. It's a separate, it's a project mailbox. Yeah.
What we're limited our SharePoint, we're limited in space. So we have a lot of issues with receiving the garden space and these things. So when I look at this, it's great, but I can see people attaching things to SharePoint,
Sure.
put it in SharePoint, they also email it. Is it stored on SharePoint or is it taken away from our allocated space?
Exactly. It's not, that's a separate conversation on how IT would manage these, but the idea here is, in the spirit of having one-stop shop, everything's on that SharePoint site. So from a space perspective, what we're actually looking at here, these aren't separate copies of files that I have. So let's say him and me were part of the project. His own inbox won't have a copy of these Outlook. It's using Outlook to look into SharePoint. You follow me? So it's actually saving space.
Save space.
Right, and then you're keeping the integrity of the data too. Right? Don't you love it when you email a single file to 10 people, hey, can you work on this, can you work on that, and then 100 file comes back, you're trying to pull your hair, trying to figure out what's the latest and greatest? No more. So this is a phenomenal, wonderful feature because from my perspective, what they've done is they are building on familiar experiences. See, here's something I forgot to mention this morning at the keynote. What you want to drive, at least from a SharePoint usage perspective, is the idea of getting the job done, making people work better, work better together. And people look at Outlook, Word, Excel that way, right? People go to work, they think of Outlook, Word, Excel as their essential business tool. Y'all follow me? But unfortunately, today, people don't think of that with SharePoint. The first thing they have to think of SharePoint is, I don't like how it looks, make it pretty. Do you ever have a user saying, I don't like how Outlook looks, make it pretty? No. Because to them, that gets my work done. Y'all with me? The people today, they look at SharePoint as some pretty garage where they dump files. While you can do that, it's so much more. So you want to ingrain in people this gets your job done faster, better, quicker. Right? And the way to do that is you tie into tools that they're familiar with. Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, OneNote. Next, once you get people on the same page, you get them together, you have this one-stop shop centralized repository as a part of planning, you might want to start building your schedule. Microsoft Project is a great tool that does a couple of things, right? Number one, it helps you build schedule and manage schedules. As I was explaining earlier, my first experience was a negative experience because it assumes that I know some project management fundamentals. It's unfortunate that project today is nothing but a glorified Excel spreadsheet in a lot of organizations. I walk into organizations, they show me, hey, Doc, see how we're using Microsoft Project? Oh, okay. Where's the tracking information? What do you mean? Don't you track your projects against your project schedule that you built? You can do that? How do you use project? Well, we build a nice Microsoft Project file, Gantt charts and all. We print it out. Everybody has a copy, and that's the end of the tool. Yeah? Well, if that's all you're using Project for, then just use Excel. Because it lets you manage and track, which we'll see. It allows you to do resource management, project reporting as well. So let's go back to our scenario. Let me show you another example. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fire up Microsoft Project, right? So I've got Microsoft Project 2013, in case you haven't seen it yet. So it's very seamless with the Office experience. You got ribbon and all that good stuff. So now let's say, while that SharePoint, using SharePoint for basic task management and project management is great, now we're a little more serious. We've got this other project where we need a lot of different resources, and it's more complex. So SharePoint alone can't do it, right? So I need project. Okay. So just to get things started quickly here, I'm just going to fire up a template. There's a bunch of templates that come with projects. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to pick a marketing project. So it's actually going online to the Office store. We have a new marketing campaign project coming up. Okay, so it's going to download it. Something went wrong. Okay. Oh, there you go. Let's say the start of this project is April 22nd. Create. So, well, it's not me. I blame Microsoft. I'm just a messenger here. Or you know what? I'll just start a blank one. All right, so I'm going to start a new project. Okay, so let's say that's my start task. It's going to start let's say this is something more complex. So let's say I'm going to elicit requirements. Okay. Say I'm going to prototype. I'm going to design the solution and prototype the solution. Let's say we're going to go ahead and develop it. We're going to go ahead and no, forget testing. Let's do it. Implement it. We don't have time for that, right? Testing? What's that? Okay, so and then I'm going to make sure the project starts on the right date. So project, we're going to start on April 22nd. Okay, good stuff. Start, that's a zero-based elicit requirements. That'll take 2 weeks. Design, 2 weeks. Prototyping, that'll take another 3 weeks. Develop, 2 weeks. Implement it 2 days. And then finish, 0. Okay? So again, keep in mind, gang, I'm just planning here. So here's the fun part, or here's the powerful thing about Microsoft Project. So now I've entered that. So far, it's nothing but like a spreadsheet or like Excel. So what I can do is I can tell Project, okay, Project, based on the information I provided, and also knowing that I'm going to start April 22nd, what I'd like for you to do is automatically schedule these things for me. And when I say automatically schedule, these activities or tasks would happen one after the other, which is called finish to start. So I said finish to start, auto schedule, and voila, here's what it did. At least from a planning perspective, if you start on the 22nd with all these different estimates with a finish to start dependency, it looks like you'll end on June 25, at least for now, because we haven't put resources in. Y'all with me? It's great for schedule development and management in a second. Now, what's the other thing? The other thing is this tool can also help me with resourcing. So having a schedule is one thing, but also identifying who's going to work on the schedule is another. I can certainly manually enter all the information, meaning, let me go to the resource sheet. I can enter in, Docs, Joe, Tony, Mike, whatever. However, I need to figure out who's working on what. Before I start putting people's name, I need to make sure they're available. I need to make sure that we have the capacity to do it. So if I'm in that scenario or I have that requirement to understand who I can use, Microsoft Project alone on the desktop can't help me. Everybody with me? Okay, so I built my schedule, so it's all good. I'll continue in a second here. So that's the intent of this tool. Allows us to accelerate schedule development. Now, I've already showed you this morning, Project 2013, SharePoint 2013, cross-platform, cross-browser, cross-tool enabled. So you can use any mobile tool that you'd like. So a quick example I have, this morning you saw that video where I updated my task on my phone. Well, guess what? In Project 2013, SharePoint 2013, Exchange 2013, anytime you enter a task, for example, it doesn't matter where. So let me go back here to Outlook. So let me go to my task list. Okay? Let me go to my task list and check this out. Notice that in Outlook in my task list, other than my regular task list, I have executive presentation project tasks. Look at that. How did that show up? The fact that I'm working on that project, there's a SharePoint site called executive presentation, and the fact that I was assigned a bunch of tasks at some point, there you go. So a task was entered here. As soon as it was entered here, well, guess what happened? It automatically showed up in Outlook, which, by the way, is tied to my phone as well. Isn't that brilliant? So he's jumping for joy there. Because that's been a problem before. Outlook task is separate than SharePoint task, separate than project task. Now it's all one. Not only is it all one, if I look at my news feed, so I'm going to show you some of the social stuff here. So if I go to my news feed, so again, the idea of a news feed, it's kind of like Facebook pretty much. You have your news feed, your streams, who you like, who you're following, but more importantly, it it's not only just people. You can look at all the documents you're interested in. It also suggests, based on the characteristics of these documents, it can suggest you might want to look at these other stuff. But this also respects permission. It only shows you what you have access to. But the other point I want to raise here, gang, is task. If I look at task, it has a single view of all my tasks. The personal is your Outlook task. These are all my project tasks, regardless it's coming from SharePoint or Microsoft Project. Very, very powerful. Powerful. Not only can I update it from here, I can also, oh, you see that? ICCSP task suddenly popped up. That was just a project I created. So if I can create a new task, I don't even have to go to the project site. I can create a new task here saying, demo to customer. Whatever. Put a date, 5/1/2013. In a few seconds, now that I've just put demo to customer, where is it going to show up? On the project site, also in my copy of Outlook, also on my phone. That's it. Oh yeah, oh wow. All of it. Are you guys excited about this? I'm proud.
Can that be subject to an approval by project manager?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we can put in all the rules. Right now, the way I have it, it's like an open thing. But yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yes, ma'am.
It's possible to, we have projects that are going to be contained within a team, but then they're going to want to show them to people outside that team.
Sure.
Is it possible to segment those permissions?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'll show that in a second. So gang, make sure for the next questions, just don't ask me if they can do it. Just ask me how to do it. Just kidding. Yeah, a little laughter helps, right? So from a planning perspective, getting started perspective, all the tools are there, and it doesn't have to be project. It doesn't have to be SharePoint. I can go to my newsfeed, Outlook. It's on my terms. Next. Tracking. So how do we track? How do we measure relevantly? So before I talk about tracking, I want to give you a big picture view on how Project Server works. A lot of folks don't have a high level understanding, so I'm just going to give you a high level picture of how this thing works, and then I'll talk about Project Server. I'll show you how you can take advantage of it. So Project Server sits on top of SharePoint. Project Server requires, no, that's a strong word, requires. It used to require, now it doesn't have to, but it works nicely with Microsoft Project on the desktop. Everybody with me? So earlier in Microsoft Project, you remember I created a little schedule? So the idea with Project Server is a project manager, number one, would create a schedule. Tasks, resources, all that good stuff. As soon as that schedule is created, the project manager will publish it to Project Server. And you'll see this in a second. And once it's published to Project Server will look at the tasks, the assignments, number two, and notify project team members of their tasks and assignments. So project team members will get an email saying, congratulations, you've just been assigned 10,000 tasks. Good for you. With a link, they click on a link, they'll have a personalized website. It's called Project Web Access or Project Web App. And they'll see a listing of projects they're involved in, a listing of tasks they're involved in, all that good stuff. And the idea is project team members, once they see that, they do their work, they update their tasks. Once they update their tasks, Project Server gets that information. Project Manager would be alerted, and Project Manager would review. They would either approve those updates or reject those updates. And then Project Manager, if need be it, update the schedule or update some of the parameters of the project. Project Server takes that, notifies them again, so that whole cycle continues. Y'all with me? Now, what about external folks? What about management? What about folks that aren't doing the detailed stuff, but they need visibility from a big picture view? Right? What can they see? What can they do? We can set it up that executive management can see certain, what they call KPI, key performance indicators. The red, yellow, green kind of thing. They worship them. And if they want to drill into the details, they could. So let me show you. So let's go back. So what do we track, right? We track a lot of different things: schedule, financial data, demand, resources. So let me finish my story here, and I'll show you how all this life cycle works. So let me go back to Microsoft Project. So let's say I've got all this good stuff. Now I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to click on Resource, and I'm going to click Add Resources. I'm going to click Build Team from Enterprise. Now what does that do? So what am I doing right now? So right now what's happening is Microsoft Project is contacting Project Server, where it has all this information. Let me pull up Project Server for you and kind of show it to you. So let me go to, there you go. So I'm on, okay. So what you're seeing here, gang, is this is what's called Project Web App. So this is Project Server on the browser called Project Web App. So we see a lot of stuff, right? We see a lot of little projects. But what I want to show you, at least at this juncture, is I'm going to click on Resources. It has a listing of all the project resources I can use. So what we're saying here is, once you install this or use this, one of the first things you have to do, number one, is tweak Project Server to behave to your organizational standards. You tweak Project Server by adding in all the project resources that can be used. And once that's done, anytime somebody works on a project, they can look at the resource information and pick, I can say show resource availability. Show me who's available between this date and that date, etc. Right? So I can pick a couple resources here. So let's pick Alex. I believe I'm here as well. So let me pick Ducks. Okay. So as soon as I pick those two resources, and keep in mind, the resource, not only are they loaded on Project Server, but every important information about them is there as well. Things like their vacation, their availability, their billable rates, what other projects they're working on. Y'all with me? Okay. So I put in all those information, and then I can go ahead and start assigning the resources to relevant tasks. So, I'm a team player, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign everything to Alex. I did the hard job of assigning it. There you go. So as soon as I do that, I'm going to hit Publish. Okay, so this is the marketing prototype project, whatever. I can put in custom information. So what this is, these are what's called project custom fields about the project. You can put in your own metrics there, depending on what you want to measure. And let me hit Save. So as soon as I hit Save, what's going to happen? Notice it says synchronizing data to server. This information would now go out to Project Server. And once it's in Project Server, create a site, yep. So it's publishing it. Once it's in Project Server, in a second, I can go back to projects and I can see the information here. Now, let me explain something. Ducks, I get this, but hold on, I'm kind of confused. You started your conversation using SharePoint, and now you're saying you can use project and publish all this stuff. Where do you draw the line? Here's where you draw the line. If all you're doing, or your users are needing for project management, it's a one-off simple project, they're sharing files, they're basic tasks, action items, a couple of people, which you don't really care, you don't really track those people's time. All you need to know is if they've done it or if they haven't. Y'all with me? It's just one project, that's it, nothing complex, stay in SharePoint. But if you're talking about something more complex, not complex, but it's so much more that you need. Well, Ducks, I can't just pick any people. There's a team of people I use. I need to measure what they are doing, what they're not doing. I need to figure out their billable rates. The tasks itself are more complex. And then I need to roll it up later to see from a big picture company perspective, that kind of stuff. That's when you use project and project server. Everybody with me? So now, once I've published this, and let me hit refresh. So what we'll see, so again, I'm on Project Web App, Project Center. Let me look for that marketing prototype project. Oh, there you go. So now, once it's published to Project Server, It has information about that marketing prototype project. I can look at the schedule. Okay, so there's the schedule. You know, it's a reflection of Microsoft project. And not only that, my resources, if they're assigned, and I'll show you in a second, can update their time here as well, or Outlook, or on their newsfeed. Now, the other thing that happens is once you publish a project to, oh, it's not done yet. Okay. Once you publish a project, I think it's still doing it. I was trying it too early. What it's also going to do, it's going to provision a SharePoint site so that people in that project would have a place to collaborate. So let me go back again, marketing prototype. Let's see if this is done. Yeah, it's not done. It's still building it. Okay? Questions? Thoughts? All right. So next. So now let's say, okay, Doc, so you publish it. How does the resource interact with it? Once it's published, the resource gets an alert, an email saying, hey, look, you need to work on this task. And it's a link that will take them to the project schedule, and it will provide all the tasks that they need to work on. So if I go to PWA again, notice this. This is like, I'm logged in as Dux. So it says you have 13 new tasks you need to work on. Okay? Again, I don't have to do it here. I could do it in Outlook. But if you want to measure specific time, for example, like you want to capture people's hours, right? Some of us might need that. In Outlook, you can update based on percent. You know, 50%, 80%. Well, that's okay. That's not quantifiable. But in terms of hours out of the box, your resource can enter it directly here. Like for this period, depending on what your period means. For the phone app project, I've done this much time. For the product launch, I've done, so the resource can enter in all their information here. As soon as the resource enter in the information, it doesn't update the project right away. As soon as the resource enter in their updates, if you're the project manager, you'll be alerted saying, hey, look, you need to approve or review these tasks that was just ordered or updated, right? So I'm the PM of a bunch of projects, so we're looking at this. So you know, whatever project it is, that was just updated. So let me look at this. It's going to bring up that information to say Docs is 40% complete. He can put notes, and if that looks good to me, I can accept it, and then my resource and put some comments, good job, carry on, whatever, and they'll continue working. Now, if the schedule deviates, let's say the resource took more time, right? They're allocated to do it one day and it took them 10 days. And you review it, you call the resource up, hey, what's up? Why did it take 10 days? Well, bad weather, whatever. And then you accept it, it's going to automatically reschedule it for you. And then if anybody else is affected of that rescheduling, they'll be alerted. Questions? All right. Now, another aspect around Project Server 2013 is you can easily automate processes. It could be as simple as expense reimbursement, travel requests, training requests, or even change control. Anybody know change control process? It's a great idea, right? A lot of times, it's not being executed because the process is so manual. I've been in organizations to fill out a change request or change control form. It's like a Word document in a network share. You fill it out and email it to the mythical CCB. Because you don't even know if it exists. Because you don't hear anything back. Right? But what about if you can provide an automated way through info path forms or custom lists? Any changes, fill out the form. And they hit send. Boom, it will go to the right person. If the person doesn't act on it, you can make the system remind them again. And not only that, you can make it visible because the workflow works hand in hand with Visio services. It'll give you a visual representation of what's going on. You can even build your workflows in Visio, where if you do that, you build a workflow in Visio and say, make this, automate this in SharePoint. No coding. Very powerful. And there's, again, third-party products out there that can help you with that. We use a lot of Intech, so they have workflow tools for both SharePoint and Project Server. So that's for the tracking aspect. What about reporting, Ducks? Reporting is very important. It's critical in any project. And this is visualizing business intelligence. So the question earlier, well, Ducks, we've got all these details here, but there's other people who might need to see or maybe need to access certain information. There's a couple ways to do this. So first, let's say from sharing perspective. So let me go to an existing project site. Let me go to I'll pick a document, for example. So let's say you're working on a project and you need to share some Word document. So I can simply highlight that document and say share. And when I do that, I can put in email address, and depending on how your infrastructure is set up, they don't even have to be in your environment. And that's one thing I really like about Office 365 is you just put in their email. Essentially, you're granting privilege and permission to that individual for this one specific content. That's one example. The other example is from a reporting perspective. So let me go to the reports. You can look at a lot of different things. So what I'm going to show you, gang, is a new reporting technology called PowerView. Let me explain what PowerView is. Anybody heard of PowerView? Kind of read about it? Okay. So you're familiar with things like Power Pivot, or like pivot table graphs and charts and whatnot. PowerView is a new technology in 2013 for Excel, SQL Server, SharePoint, Performance Point. The idea is you can animate your reports. You can animate your reports. So it's still loading, okay? And the animation allows you to do trending and forecasting. For example, you remember those movies if there's like an epidemic that happens, and they're reporting to Mr. President, Mr. President, see the map of the U.S.? The virus started here. In 24 hours, it's going to spread. In 1 month, it's going to wipe out the whole country. If we don't do anything. It's called Jack Bauer. Who is that show? You seen his new show, Touch? His new show, Touch. I still didn't get in my head. I think it's Jack Bauer. Anyway, so this does that. PowerView does that. So this is an example of a project overview dashboard. This looks at all the projects I have in Project Server. So notice that I can kind of go through it. But I can also do animated filtering. So let me pick the one of the CFO campaign project. I can check that box. So now it could show me, and I could drill down further. I can even filter information on the fly. Everybody with me? So your management, your customers can interact with the data. What if we do this? What if we do that? By the way, in case you're keeping up with technology news, the Microsoft BI team, SQL Server team, are working with the Connect team, the Xbox Connect. So what they're going to do in the next few years, we'll start seeing this dashboards and report projected, and with Connect, you can start drilling in data, doing minority report stuff. Oh, seriously, it's cool stuff. Now, what other things do you want to look at, right? Well, there's a lot of other stuff you can drill into. So I'll show you 2 more types of reporting information we can leverage here. So let's say in your organization you have high-level strategic drivers based on all the projects you're working on. So you can set up these drivers, the criteria, okay? So let's say increase market share in existing markets, right? That's a business driver. Now you can tie this driver to your project activities. So I can look at driver prioritization. The COO's stuff is most important. So I can review priorities, prioritize them. So what we're talking about here is at the high level, all the data that you have can push and drive the information here. There you go. So let's look at some portfolio analysis. Okay, so let's look at 2013, what our portfolio looks like. And these are, again, based on scenarios and criteria you set up, right? Let's look at cost analysis. A lot of great reporting capabilities. Now, this is assuming you got good, solid data, right? All this is coming from relevant data. Now, another example. Well, Docs, that's cool, but I'm more interested in looking at what people are working on. So I can pull up resource availability, for example. So I can, all these resources are checked, and once I click on it, I pick a couple people. It shows me, well, during this date range, here's what Adam's working on, his assignments, how much time, how much his utilization is, how much time he's spent, etc. So a lot of good information here. Now, I want to show you, I've been showing you Project 2013, but I want to show you some existing examples today. Recovery.gov, you talk about project management system. This is the ultimate project management system. It tracks $800 billion worth of the stimulus funds, where the money went, how the projects are doing, how many jobs were created. This whole thing is sitting on SharePoint technology, and again, it's doing a lot of BI and data analysis. Another example, this is sitting on SharePoint as well. It's the Virginia Department of Transportation. It's tracking a lot of key metrics for the department. Performance, public safety, how their finance is doing, projects. Y'all see that? And the data is coming not only from SharePoint, it's actually coming from a bunch of different places as well. Excel, some of them, Project. I'm sure somebody got promoted with this. Looks nice. Another example I want to show you quickly that's more related to what we're looking at. This is public. This is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Office of Water. So what they've got here is, this is actually powered by SharePoint Project Server and SQL Server reporting services. Their pain point was twofold. Number one, they don't have visibility into what's going on with their project. Every year they have about $40 million worth of IT projects that's being subbed out to vendors. And the reports they get are always 2 weeks behind. They won't know what's going on real time. So sometimes they aren't able to make decisions that may help them save money or act on the project and improve upon it. So we help put this solution together for them. Project Server is the engine. This is the reporting mechanism that the executives and the public see. But for the resources, the people doing the project, so I click on this metric and all the projects show up. Modernization, migration, whatever. So when I click on that, it tells me to log in now. It goes to a regular SharePoint site. Because one of the challenge they have is their people won't use Project. It's just too much. You go, that's okay. But they like SharePoint. It's okay. So SharePoint being the one-stop shop, they put all the data in there. Since it's a Microsoft technology, it works with Project Server cleanly. We use Project Server as the engine, figuring all this out, spitting out all the reports, while people still in SharePoint on their turn. Everybody with me? So, just to wrap up, to fast-track project management success, the key you have to think about with 2013, it allows you to deliver relevant solutions on people's terms with the tools they're familiar with. And as we saw throughout the 3 common phases of a project lifecycle, there's a lot of options for you, and certainly 2013 can deliver all the solutions for the project management needs that you have. That's just a link to the case study of EPA, and I have printed brochures too if you want to read it. But we helped them do that. We did it in 2 months. 3rd month into deployment, they saved $2 million ROI right away. Because they're able to see, oh, stop doing that. Let's reallocate our funds here and there, blah, blah, blah. $2 million. Of your or my money. All right, gang. So what do you think? Questions? Questions? Yes, sir.
Difference between project